Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles. We're thrilled to have you join our community of love, heartache, and life's twists and turns. Your subscription means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more captivating tales and stories. Stay tuned for emotional and inspiring chronicles that explore the complexities of the heart. I've always prided myself on being a diligent industrial mechanic, dedicating countless hours to my job in the noisy, oil-scented confines of the factory. The life I've built with my wife, Sarah, has been a source of immense pride and joy. But recently, something has been eating away at me, and I can't ignore it any longer. It all began with subtle shifts in Sarah's behavior. She grew distant, spending more time on her phone and becoming unusually secretive about her whereabouts. At first, I chalked it up to stress, but as the days turned into weeks, my gut feeling told me something was off. One evening, I came home early, utterly drained after a grueling day at work. The moment I walked through the door, I noticed Sarah hastily hiding her phone and offering a forced smile. That's when the unease in my heart solidified into suspicion. One Saturday afternoon, I had plans to meet up with some old friends for a barbecue at our place. I texted Sarah earlier in the day to confirm that she'd be back in time to help with the preparations. She replied that she was going shopping with her friend, Lisa, and would be back around 3 p.m. As the clock ticked towards 3 p.m., I grew increasingly anxious. Sarah's shopping trips had never taken this long before. At 3:30 p.m., I called her and she claimed they were stuck in traffic and would be home soon. The guests started to arrive, and I did my best to keep the barbecue going, but I couldn't help feeling frustrated. It wasn't until well past 5 p.m. that Sarah finally walked through the door. She looked flustered and tired, not at all like someone who had been shopping all day. I asked her about the shopping bags, but she said they had decided not to buy anything after all. Later that evening, I noticed a shopping receipt in her purse, dated earlier that day, for a substantial amount. It became clear that Sarah had lied about her whereabouts and what she had been doing during those extra hours she was gone. Another instance that raised suspicions occurred on a weekday evening. Sarah had told me she had an important work meeting and would be home late. Given her job in marketing, occasional late meetings weren't unusual, but this one felt different. I decided to surprise her by bringing dinner to her workplace, thinking it would be a nice gesture. When I arrived at her office building around 8 p.m., I was surprised to see no one else around. I entered the building and made my way to her office, only to find it empty and the lights turned off. I called her phone, and she answered with surprise in her voice. She claimed that the meeting had wrapped up early, and she was just on her way home. But her response seemed rushed and somewhat unconvincing. As I drove back home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It seemed like Sarah had lied about the work meeting and what had kept her so late at the office, adding to the growing list of doubts and suspicions in my mind. I decided to take a more active approach. I began to closely monitor Sarah's schedule and the things she said. Inconsistencies in her stories emerged. She'd mentioned spending time with friends I'd never heard of before. One Saturday, my need for answers led me to surprise Sarah at her supposed girls' night out. I parked my car down the street from the restaurant and watched from a distance. When I saw her enter with a group of friends, a wave of relief washed over me. Maybe I was overthinking it. But as I watched her from afar, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She was laughing and talking animatedly, but her gaze lingered a little too long on a man at the table. My heart sank as I recognized the telltale signs of flirtation. Doubts and suspicions consumed me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my world was unraveling. That night, I confronted Sarah. She reassured me, blaming her recent behavior on stress and work-related issues. As my suspicions about Sarah's behavior grew, I found myself unable to ignore the nagging feeling that something was amiss in our relationship. One evening, when Sarah had stepped out to run errands, I couldn't shake the urge to investigate further. I knew it wasn't right, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. I found myself standing in our dimly lit living room, staring at her phone sitting innocently on the coffee table. It was unlocked, a rare occurrence as Sarah was usually careful to keep it secure with a passcode or fingerprint lock. My heart pounded as I contemplated whether to cross this line, but my growing doubt and unease compelled me to pick it up. With trembling hands, I unlocked the phone. My heart raced as I sifted through her messages, feeling like a complete stranger in her digital world. It felt wrong, and I was plagued by guilt, but I had to know the truth. As I scrolled through her messages, I discovered a conversation with a contact named Mark. Their exchanges were filled with affectionate and intimate language that sent shockwaves through my entire being. My stomach churned, and a wave of despair washed over me. It was undeniable, Sarah was cheating on me with this person named Mark. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, and tears welled up in my eyes as I continued to read the messages. They spoke of secret meetings, romantic getaways, and plans to be together. She had shared explicit details: how she likes to be intimate, what positions, and how she loves to use a specific lube to ensure that everything is smooth and effortless. The evidence was undeniable, and the weight of the truth bore down on me like a crushing burden. I quickly exited the messages, my heart pounding in my chest, and placed the phone back on the table just as Sarah walked through the door. I couldn't look her in the eye, and my mind raced as I tried to figure out how to confront her about what I had discovered. Little did she know that the very device she had entrusted me with unknowingly revealed the painful secret that would forever change the course of our relationship. The discovery of Sarah's infidelity left me seething with anger and betrayal. The nights were sleepless, and the days were filled with emotional turmoil. I couldn't confront her directly without concrete evidence, and so, after careful consideration, I made the difficult decision to hire a private investigator to gather proof of her affair. I searched online for reputable investigators and found one with a solid track record of discreetly uncovering the truth in situations like mine. After an initial phone call and consultation, I decided to move forward with their services. The investigator, a seasoned professional named David, assured me that he would conduct a thorough and discreet investigation to provide me with the evidence I needed. He explained the process, which would include surveillance, background checks, and documenting Sarah's interactions with the mysterious Mark. Over the course of several weeks, David diligently followed Sarah's movements, tracking her daily routines, and documenting her encounters. It was both painful and frustrating to receive regular updates on her activities, but I knew that this was the only way to confirm what I had discovered on her phone. As David's investigation progressed, the evidence began to mount. Photographs of Sarah and Mark together at restaurants, parks, and even a weekend getaway were provided to me. Text messages, phone call logs, and other records painted a vivid picture of their ongoing affair. The anger that had initially consumed me only intensified as I saw the proof of her betrayal. I felt a mix of emotions, from sadness to rage, but I knew that I had to remain patient until the investigation was complete. When David finally presented me with the comprehensive evidence, it was a painful moment of truth. The pictures and records left no room for doubt: Sarah had been unfaithful, and our once trusting relationship had been shattered. With the evidence in hand, I had to decide what to do next. The anger that had driven me to hire the private investigator had served its purpose. It had provided me with clarity and undeniable proof. Now, I had to confront Sarah and make difficult decisions about the future of our relationship. After gathering substantial evidence of Sarah's infidelity through the private investigator, I knew it was time to seek legal counsel. My trust in our marriage had been shattered, and I needed guidance on how to navigate the difficult road ahead. With a heavy heart, I reached out to a divorce lawyer I had found through a trusted friend's recommendation. I scheduled an appointment with the lawyer, a seasoned professional named Julia, who specialized in family law. On the appointed day, I gathered all the evidence the private investigator had provided me with: the photographs, text messages, call logs, and any other records that documented Sarah's affair with Mark. When I arrived at Julia's office, I was met with a reassuring presence. She listened carefully as I recounted the painful story of my discovery and shared the evidence I had gathered. Her empathetic demeanor provided some solace in this turbulent time. I placed the evidence on her desk, and Julia meticulously reviewed each piece, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. She explained the legal options available to me, including divorce proceedings and potential considerations regarding asset division. Julia was candid about the challenges that lay ahead, but also provided a sense of reassurance and guidance. She emphasized the importance of proceeding with caution and prioritizing my own well-being throughout the process. We discussed potential strategies, such as mediation or negotiation with Sarah, to avoid a lengthy and emotionally draining court battle if possible. Julia also explained the importance of keeping emotions in check during legal proceedings to secure the best possible outcome. Leaving the lawyer's office that day, I felt a mixture of emotions: sadness, anger, and anxiety about the path I was embarking upon. But I also had a newfound sense of clarity and purpose. With Julia's guidance and the evidence in her possession, I was ready to take the necessary steps to end my marriage and move forward with my life, even though it was a path I had never imagined myself walking. I didn't have a joint account with Sarah. Our financial separation was a blessing in disguise, as it shielded me from any potential financial disputes that could have further complicated our already strained relationship. With this financial independence in mind, I decided to take steps to secure my savings. I withdrew the entirety of my savings from my personal account, taking the cash in an envelope. It was a bittersweet moment, realizing that I needed to protect my financial future amid the emotional turmoil of divorce. Next, I turned to my parents, who had always been a pillar of support in my life. I knew I could trust them completely. Sitting down with them, I explained the situation and handed over the envelope of cash. Their reassuring presence and understanding provided me with a much-needed sense of comfort. I asked my parents to hold on to the money for me, not only to safeguard it from any potential disputes with Sarah but also to ensure that I wouldn't make impulsive financial decisions during the emotionally charged divorce process. Their support was invaluable during this turbulent period in my life, and their willingness to help with my financial security meant the world to me. With my finances in a safer place and my parents by my side, I now could focus on what I really wanted: revenge. The emotional turmoil it had caused, revenge was a fleeting thought that crossed my mind. The anger and betrayal were overwhelming, and for a moment, I contemplated ways to hurt her in return. However, I did not want any harm coming my way. All this time Sarah had no idea what was going on. Throughout the tumultuous period of our crumbling marriage, Sarah remained blissfully unaware of my secret plans. As far as she knew, our relationship had been strained due to the stresses of our individual lives, but she had no inkling of the depth of my investigation or my contemplation of divorce. Little did she know that my actions were leading us down a path neither of us had ever imagined, one that would soon bring our relationship to a dramatic and painful crossroads. That night I reached home late and my wife was already at home. As I entered, she hugged me. I was able to smell men's cologne on her. Her presence was like daggers in my heart. I slowly brushed her aside and went to take a shower. That night I did not go to my bed. I sat on the recliner and kept on thinking how to get payback on my wife. Next morning, I was back at the office facility. There was a new glue was being tested to seal iron pipelines. The formulation was effective and did its job very well. We also developed another formulation that would undo the join. As the main technician, I was tasked to work with it. While I was working with it, we had to be careful. The special gloves and the anti-glue had to be used all the time. The consistency and the feel of the glue felt familiar. It was then that a giant light bulb lit up right on top of my head. I had the most wicked smile on my face and it was the most diabolical plan I could have ever come up with. I took about 100 milliliters in a glass bottle and went home. Called my boss that I am unwell and wanted a day off. In the morning I saw my wife get ready and leave for work. I went straight to my bedroom and I knew where my wife kept her favorite lube. I replaced most of it. After a quick coffee, I called my wife and said that I would not be coming home tonight as I had a big problem at my office that needed a mechanical fixing and it would take almost 2 days. She did not question and seemed to be fine with it. As planned, I left my home at 4 p.m. a few hours before my wife usually comes home. I knew where Mark worked and I parked right across his office and saw him leaving office before his usual office hours ended. I knew cause I had my PI follow both of them extensively. I expected them to go straight to my home as they can have a free run today. Also, my wife was not carrying her favorite lube. She never likes to get intimate without it. Mark picked up my wife in a few minutes, and as I followed them, I realized they were indeed headed to my home. I parked a block away and walked towards my home. I peeped through the window and saw them already naked in the drawing room and making their way towards the bedroom. Just as I thought, I heard screams. Both of them were screaming and horrified. At exactly that moment I took out my phone and called my wife. She did not answer. It was still in the drawing room. I saw them both joined at the bottom struggling to walk towards their phones. In a few minutes paramedics arrived and I pretended to arrive with them. The paramedics broke open the door and one of them actually started giggling when he saw their condition. My wife, still naked and in Mark's arms, was shocked to see me arrive. She started crying and kept saying that she can explain. I asked her to be quiet and told her get fixed first. I quickly rushed to the bedroom and pasted a label that said glue on the lube bottle. That would somewhat absolve me of misdemeanor charges, if any. Given the nature of the incident, it made headlines and my wife was exposed, and I had already filed for divorce. The divorce proceedings were fairly quick and I did not lose a lot of money. The house was sold split among us both and I had to give up my car to her. No alimony, as she was earning a bit more than me. She is unemployed now, as her office let her go with the growing publicity she brought. I was called into a meeting with the management and I was blasted by the team for using the glue on humans. However, the CEO was supportive and let me off the hook provided that no one ever talks about it. He understood my situation as he had been in one years ago. He later met me and said that he really wished he had that idea years ago. We laughed for a while and then walked our ways to our departments. After the painful and emotionally draining process of divorce, I found myself in a place where I needed a fresh start, a way to channel my emotions constructively, and a means to rebuild my life. It was during this time that I stumbled upon martial arts as a new hobby, one that would become a source of healing, strength, and personal growth. Martial arts offered me a path to rediscovering myself, both physically and mentally. Over time, martial arts became more than just a hobby, it became a transformative force in my life. It allowed me to rebuild my sense of self, find inner peace, and move forward with renewed strength and resilience. In the midst of my personal struggles, I had discovered a path to healing and growth that I had never expected. In the years following my divorce from Sarah, our lives took distinctly separate paths. The wounds from the dissolution of our marriage ran deep, and both of us had chosen to move forward independently, without seeking or maintaining contact with each other. The passage of time brought about a sense of healing and closure. I immersed myself in my career, continued to pursue my hobbies, and focused on personal growth. The memories of my failed marriage gradually faded into the background as I worked towards building a new life. In this period, I never heard a word about Sarah. Mutual friends had long since drifted away, and we had kept our social circles separate during the divorce proceedings. Neither of us had a desire to monitor or interfere with each other's lives, choosing instead to embrace the opportunity for a fresh start. Years turned into a decade, and the lack of information about Sarah became the norm. I couldn't help but wonder how she was doing or what path her life had taken, but the desire to reach out or inquire remained dormant. Our shared history had become a distant memory, and we had both moved on in our own unique ways. The passage of time had brought peace and acceptance, and I had come to terms with the fact that the chapters of our lives had diverged permanently. While the memories of my ex-wife remained a part of my past, the years had allowed me to move forward and focus on the present and the possibilities of the future. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please land the eagle on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.